What's up everyone, OJ here, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about how the Nintendo Switch has shifted the Japanese game industry. Now the reason why this is being brought up is because there is a significant milestone that the Nintendo Switch has hit recently. It just surpassed 8 million units in Japan. It's actually just over it at 8,058 units, and it's actually dangerously close when it comes to the Nintendo Switch versus the PlayStation 4 to surpassing the PlayStation 4 in Japan. Right now in Japan, the PlayStation 4 has 8,033,587 units. So I don't think it's going to surpass it next week, but probably the week after, we're going to see that the Nintendo Switch is the new current generation leader when it comes to hardware sales. And in my opinion, that's actually going to be a big shift for the Japanese game industry and what they're going to be doing going forward. Now, we all know the story, but if you don't know the story, I'll go ahead and let you know. Japan did not believe in the Nintendo Switch. Even though it was a modular, portable type of system that you can take anywhere that you want, and you can also play at home, a lot of Japanese game developers did not think that the system was going to be successful, considering how the Wii U did, and how there was like a tablet-like device, and you can kind of play games not anywhere that you want, but you can play them in your room or at a certain distance, and then also on the TV. Yeah, that concept they felt didn't work good enough. And even though that they completely changed it, a lot of them felt that Nintendo, it was going to take them some time or it wasn't going to be successful, and they just continue supporting the PlayStation brand by itself, or continue supporting the Nintendo 3DS because that was still going, or maybe even get more into PC development like Bandai Namco has done, and recently Sega has been doing more too as well. But the Nintendo Switch caused a little bit of a rift in their plans. Not only did it start out hot, but it continued to stay hot, and now it's absolutely red hot, because if you look at the sales year on year, and this is the reason why this is shifting. Heck, we've already seen it with some stuff when it comes to the type of games that I'm going to be talking about here that Nintendo's never gotten or have came to Nintendo Switch because of the great sales. But even last year at the same point, from January to March, the Nintendo Switch sold 772,632 units in Japan. Now this year, from that same time period, from January to March, it sold 1,110,512 units, a nice 300,000 unit plus bump up, and like I said, very close to surpassing the PlayStation 4, which has been out since February 2014. So it's been out for more than 4 years in Japan, more than 4 years, and the Nintendo Switch, it only being out for a little bit over 2 years, is about to pass it up in the next 2 weeks. That is definitely going to cause some of the higher ups at a lot of these companies to shift how they do things going into the next generation. And that's kind of the biggest thing here. Obviously, a lot of these Japanese developers were caught off guard. A lot of Western developers were caught off guard, but still don't care at this point. But many do, indies and stuff like that. We do have a little bit of Western support, but this is really the shift that I'm talking about, is more of the Japanese game industry and kind of what we're going to see from that going forward because of these numbers. I think a lot of Japanese developers are going to start moving over lead development over to the Nintendo Switch, even with the newer systems coming out, because you have to look at it this way, which I've talked about before in previous videos. We're looking at a lot of the best Japanese games. A lot of them didn't come out until 3, 4, even 5 years after the launch of the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Monster Hunter World, for example, that's a 2018 game. You look at stuff like Dragon Ball FighterZ. What are we going to see going forward, and what is that already produced now at this point when it comes to Japanese developers? So here's what I'm hearing, guys. One, I'm hearing that a lot of Japanese developers have completely shifted to it's going to be on Switch no matter what. So a lot of times before in the past, if something was to come on Nintendo systems, there'd always be some type of weird thing going on, or it would come out later. Going forward in the future, we're going to see a lot more day and date games, which we are seeing, and we're going to see them get closer to the launch of the other systems. For example, God Eater 3. That's one of the games that was recently announced, that released in Japan in December of 2018, in the West in February 2019, and now we're getting the game in July 2019, just this April. So it's going to be shorter and shorter in terms of the time period that we have to wait, or it's just going to be day and date. You can go back to last year. We had a game like Valkyria Chronicles 4 launch, not necessarily day and date in Japan because it didn't. It came out first on the PlayStation 4, but then we got the worldwide release all day and date, PS4, Xbox One, and also the Nintendo Switch. And I'm almost positive that Valkyria Chronicles 4 was added in later because of how well the Switch was doing, just because they said, hey, well, it's not going to be ready at launch. They hadn't been working on it. They had to take some extra time to make sure the game was up to snuff. You're even seeing stuff like AI the Summoning Files. That type of game would have just never came to the Nintendo platform, or it'd be like a 3DS type of game. We're seeing stuff like that day and date on the PlayStation 4 and also on the Nintendo Switch. But look at a lot of the other stuff that we've seen come out on other systems and not released on Nintendo platform. Stuff like Shining Resonance Refrain, that got a launch on the Nintendo Switch day and date here in the West. Tales of Vesperia, once again, that got a launch here in the West day and date. Disgaea 5 and Disgaea franchise in general, the remake, that was almost never on Nintendo platforms. I think we saw one game on the Nintendo DS, but we didn't get anything else from that franchise on Nintendo home consoles, and now we have Disgaea, and going forward, it's going to be a game that's going to be on Nintendo platforms. Stuff like Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet and also Sword Art Online Hollow Realization. Both of these were franchises, Sword Art Online, that had never appeared on a Nintendo system, actually appearing on an Xbox system before a Nintendo system, because Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet came out last year for the Xbox One here in the West. So now we're seeing stuff like that come over to Nintendo platforms, and even getting a game like Hollow Realization, which I don't think is on the Xbox One platform. Look at stuff like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, once again, never appeared on a Nintendo system. Now we're seeing that. Dragon Ball Xenoverse, stuff that was just skipped on Nintendo platforms, or they'd make some type of different or offshoot game that you would see on the Nintendo 3DS. But now we're starting to get that, and the shift is definitely in. And I think going forward, the lead platform for a lot of these Japanese developers, because of these sales here, is going to be the Nintendo Switch by the year's end, with a game like Pokemon Sword and Shield. Also with the game like Animal Crossing on the Nintendo Switch, this 8 million could balloon all the way up to maybe around 13 to 14 million, probably even more than that. I'll be honest here, guys, because it's a little bit over 2 years down here, and we've got 8 million units, so that's 4 million units a pop when it comes to each year. 2017, then 2018, now we're into 2019, still a little bit early in the year, and that's about 4 million units each year. So if you're looking at it now at this point, what is it going to do? Well, there's some big hitting Japanese titles. Of course, Super Smash Bros. Came out at the very end of December, which boosted things up considerably. And then you have to factor in what we're getting this year and how that's probably going to be a lot more than that 8 million that we do have lifetime to date so far, which is once again pretty much right there next to the PlayStation 4 in a fraction of the time. So it's one of those things looking at going forward. I can see a lot of these Japanese developers, especially with stuff like Sword Art Online, which there was a new game announced, but I think that game's already been in development for a while. I do feel like there's going to be a Nintendo Switch version, but going forward, seeing stuff like Tales Day and Date, seeing stuff like Disgaea be potentially even lead platforms on this for Japanese developers, or even exclusives, stuff like Ninjala, which we still need to learn more about, but Ninjala is coming as an exclusive to Nintendo Switch, or even like Grandia, the 1 and 2 remakes, stuff like that coming exclusive to the Switch. This is definitely the start of the shift when it comes to Japanese development and what they're going to be doing going forward. I can see a lot of the smaller end games and stuff like I just talked about, Ninjala and things like that, being exclusives on Nintendo's platforms, or just outright new games made for them, right? Outright new exclusives and stuff made for the Nintendo Switch or crafted for it. Because if you look at the Western audience, we're buying just as much Japanese games as the Japanese audience. And in actuality, we buy more just because there's more people here in the West. I think it makes business sense from both perspectives, whether it comes to selling games in Japan for these Japanese developers or selling their games overseas. You're seeing a lot of great sales come from the Nintendo platforms, like a Valkyria Chronicles 4 or Disgaea 5 outselling the PS4 version and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to bigger end titles, I think we can still see some slowdown, or some like, oh, we have to wait a little bit, bigger end Japanese games, but I think that they're going to do everything they can, and of course Nintendo's going to work to make sure that going forward in the future that it's going to be on the Nintendo Switch as well with development. So we'll have to wait and see. I still think there's going to be some holdovers here and there, right? You got people like From Software who work a lot with just like PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and have success. So I'm thinking that they're going to pretty much stay kind of on there unless there's some type of remaster or something that they can do on a Nintendo platform. Or you even have a company like Falcom that's just completely loyal to Sony, and you know, they aren't necessarily going to do anything day and date, but maybe Nippon Ichi Software can come in and do like what they did with Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. So I definitely think things are shaping up good when it comes to Nintendo Switch, because it looks like by the end of the year we could see 50 million Nintendo Switches out there. It seems like this week we're going to get the announcement there's going to be 36 million plus units sold for the total of the Nintendo Switch. So with Pokemon and some of the other big hitters coming out this year, that definitely could go up to 50 by the end of the year, maybe even more. So you can't ignore that when it comes to what you're developing on and even shifting over to other systems, because they're all starting at ground zero when it comes to the next generation, all that. Whereas you can start up with a base that's more than the Super Nintendo by the end of this year and definitely by next year. So it's interesting to talk about all this. And thank you for all of you guys' thoughts and suggestions and comments on it. I think it's been pretty cool to hear what you guys have been saying too. But I would love to hear more. For those who don't come up to the live streams and everything, let me know you guys' thoughts in the comment section, what you think about everything that I said here. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Go ahead and check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Let me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future. And subscribe to PlayerEssence for this RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching. And we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.